Hello, you motorcycle maniacs. Today, we're going to take apart the carburetors of the Suzuki VS800 Intruder together. We've got a 1996 model on the table, and before we get started, I'll show you what tools we'll need. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver in size PH2 and one in size PH1. Then, I've got various flathead screwdrivers here on the table. And since some of the Phillips screws on these carburetors have already been replaced with Allen screws, I've got my little Allen key set here as well. We'll need a small, powerful flashlight, a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, a punch, and a slim one. Here we have a little homemade tool, which is a hook bent from the wire of a paperclip. And here we have an open-end ring spanner in 8 and one in 6 millimeters. And of course, we already have 2 repair kits here, and we'll also be installing 2 new air cutoff diaphragms. One more important note, please make sure to take a quick look at the video description. If I forget to mention something or if any additional information about your carburetor comes up later, I can add it there. You'll also find in the video description an email address for a professional to whom you can send your carburetor for ultrasonic cleaning. People also often ask, does the carburetor uncle actually make money from this? Here's the cool part. When you buy the repair kits from the video description using the affiliate links, you support our channel's maintenance and growth. Plus, you get a shop with fast delivery and fantastic reviews. Alright folks, let's get started with the rear carburetor. That's the one with the deep float chamber. Let me show you a comparison. I'll bring the other one into the frame. This is the front one. It has the shallow float chamber, and the rear one has this deep float chamber. We're going to start with the deep one now. You'll definitely need a Phillips screwdriver here. These 4 screws need to come out. I'm using an Allen tool here because someone already installed proper Allen screws here before. Alright, the 4 screws are out. You can lift the float chamber cover straight up. This is what it looks like. I'll set it aside now. And then we'll start by removing the float here. The float sits on a small pin here, which allows it to pivot. And now we need this little punch, this pin driver. And you can see it right here. This is how the pin is pushed out to the side here. Then you can set the pin aside for now. The float is still hanging on our pin here. And now I'm holding it in place. Pull out the pin and lift the float straight up. The float needle valve is attached to the float and it's hanging up there on this little metal tab. And you can slide it forward and down here, and then you'll have both parts separately. The inlet part, this brass piece from the float needle valve, is held in place with a small Phillips screw. That's basically the safety feature to keep it from slipping out. This Phillips screw needs to be unscrewed, and once it's out, I'll just set it aside for a moment. Then you can remove the float needle valve, meaning this inlet part here. If you want or need to use it again, please don't grab it with pliers. Instead, try to grip it from the outside here. Hold it firmly and then move it back and forth with small motions. It's sealed here with an O-ring. Take a look. This is what it looks like. There's the O-ring and a small screen attached at the bottom. That's how you can take it out. And we'll continue right away. The main jet is located up here. The main jet is also unscrewed. And under the main jet, there's a small brass washer here. There we have the main jet. The brass washer is also removed here. So, don't forget this one during reassembly. And here in this deep shaft sits the idle jet. Please use a screwdriver that fits well, not too small, otherwise you could damage the jet. It's just a very small slot and a pretty soft material. Now I turn the carburetor over and let this one fall out. This is what the idle jet looks like, and then we're done with this side for now. So now we just need to remove the paper gasket here, and then we'll continue on the other side. Oh, almost forgot, guys. Of course, the jet holder or emulsion tube is still sitting here. There are different names for it. It's still inside here. Sometimes it just falls out on its own. I use an M5 screw, screw it in a little bit, and then you can carefully tap it out from above. And there you can see it. There it comes out. Now take the screw back out. And there you go. Here's the emulsion tube. There's something else to mention about this carburetor. There's an air jet up front here. And now, let me check. It's this one. In theory, you could unscrew it as well. Usually, it's big enough. In this carburetor, it's definitely big enough that I can get it properly flooded in the ultrasonic bath even with the jet still in place. Whether you unscrew it or not is up to you. Just make sure you lay it out so you can match it up again later. Alright, and with that, we're done with this carburetor and we'll move right on to the next one. The inlet part here, this brass piece from the float needle valve, is held in place by a small Phillips screw. That's basically the safety feature to keep it from slipping out. This Phillips screw needs to be unscrewed. And once that's out, I'll just set it aside for a moment. You can remove the float needle valve, meaning this inlet part here. If you want or need to use it again, please don't grab it with pliers, but try to grip it from the outside here. Hold it firmly and then use small back and forth movements. It's sealed here with a O-ring. Take a look. That's what it looks like. There's the O-ring with a small screen attached at the bottom. That's how you can remove it. And we'll keep going right away. Up here is the main jet. The main jet is also unscrewed. And under the main jet, there's a small brass washer here. There we have the main jet. The brass washer is also removed here. Don't forget it during reassembly. And down in this deep shaft sits the idle jet. Please use a screwdriver that fits well, not too small, otherwise you could damage the jet. It's just a very small slot and a pretty soft material. Now I'll turn the carburetor over and let it fall out here. This is what the idle jet looks like. And then we're pretty much done on this side. Now we just need to remove the paper gasket here. And then we'll continue on the other side. Alright friends, let's move on to the vacuum cover. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Yours probably have Phillips heads. Like I said, someone here already installed Allen screws. Please loosen and unscrew them, and while doing so, hold the cover on top with a finger. The screws are out, and now we carefully lift the cover off upwards. I held it in place because I know there's a pretty strong spring underneath here. It already made some space for itself. We'll just set the cover aside, and the spring is just inserted here. This goes off to the side as well. And now we can remove the slide with the diaphragm. Now, please check here to see if the diaphragm is still seated correctly. It has here like a small fitting piece that fits exactly into the edge here. Now I'm reaching in underneath and pushing the slide up. Sometimes it sticks a bit in the groove here. So do it carefully. There we have the slide with the part load needle. And this slide with the mounting for the part load needle, if you look down there, is the same on both carburetors. I'll show you now using this one how you loosen it down here. You can already see there are 2 Phillips screws, so it's actually pretty simple. I'll show you in a moment how to loosen it and remove the needle if you need to get to it. As I said, it's the same for both. I'm just showing it now with one example. Alright guys, down there you can see 2 Phillips screws that need to be unscrewed. But it's important to know that this little metal plate holding everything in place will be pushed up by a spring once you remove it. So, ideally, you should try to pull the needle down a little bit while doing this, or at least, like I'm doing here, carefully press against it with a finger so it doesn't spring upwards under tension from the spring. Alright, I'm going to loosen the screws now. We can't show that part because we can't get the camera in there, but we'll continue right after that. The two screws are loosened, and now I'm going to carefully loosen things a bit at the bottom here and let everything slide out here. There, that's what it looks like. This is also the correct assembly order. At the bottom here, there's a steel washer, then there's the clip that sets the needle's position, and on top of that, a nylon washer. And the whole thing is held in place by this retaining plate and the two screws. What's still sitting in here now is the small coil spring. Let me see if we can get it out of here. There it is. And with that, all the components of the slider are disassembled. As I said, the one from the other carburetor is built exactly the same way. So, now we have another cover here. This is the cover for the air cut diaphragm, the air cut valve. Two screws. I'm going to loosen them now, unscrew them completely. And here you really have to hold it down firmly. I'm doing that here with my thumb, because the small spring underneath here is really strong. Otherwise, everything will go flying around your workshop or across your table where you're sitting. So, set the screws aside and now carefully lift the cover upwards. This is what the cover looks like. And here we have the small, strong spring I was talking about. It's just sitting in here. And carefully remove the air cut valve with its diaphragm. Now we've disassembled that as well, and it's time for the last step. The idle mixture screw still needs to come out. The mixture screw is located up here in this small channel above the throttle shaft. If the setup was fine as it was, you can of course count how many turns it was screwed out. So, carefully screw it in and count the turns as you go. That way, you'll have the previous setting. I'll do my best, even though it's really difficult with the VS, to include some adjustment data in the video description as well. But I generally recommend getting a repair manual for this motorcycle because there are a ton of different versions, including different carburetors, jetting, and basic settings, both for the idle mixture screw and the float level. There are a lot of different specs here, depending on the year of manufacture. So, a repair manual is really worth its weight in gold here. Alright, I'm taking the screw out now. Oh, and we're really lucky. I'll show you in just a second. There's a spring on the screw. Perfect. A spring, then a washer, and then an O-ring. That's the correct assembly order. Often, when you unscrew it, only the screw comes out. The spring, washer, and O-ring stay inside. That's what this little homemade tool is for. You can see it here, a hook made from a bent paperclip wire. Up here, there's something like a handle, and with it, you can play a little fishing game and usually fish these three parts out of the assembly opening. Alright folks, that was the first carburetor, the rear one. And now we'll move right on to the front one. I'll show you how the two are different. As promised, let's continue with the front carburetor. That's the one with the flat float chamber. Again, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 screws here. I'm going to unscrew them now. You probably still have tamper-proof screws installed there. Someone has already installed some fancy new IMO screws here. The 4 screws are out. I'm lifting off the float chamber cover. This is what it looks like. And as you can already see, this carburetor is built completely differently. Of course, it also has a different installation position. And here, I would start by removing the float itself. The float is again mounted on a small pin that serves as an axle here. It's a bit harder to get to here because this little screw fitting is in the way. I'm using needle nose pliers here and trying to get a good grip on it. Hold it from the side so it doesn't slip out. There we go. The pin is out. Now you can remove the float. Be careful, As always, the float needle valve is attached to the float. The float is made of plastic, but this little metal tab is also attached. I'll turn it around for you. The needle valve is hanging there, and now you push it forward off the little metal tab. It has this wire clip on top here. There you go. Now we have these parts separately. And just like with the other carburetor, we have this little retaining screw here again. This one here. For the inlet part of the float needle valve, so you have to unscrew it. And once you've unscrewed it, I'll just let it drop down here so it doesn't fall into the carburetor. Once you've unscrewed it, you can remove the float needle valve just like with the other carburetor. Let me remind you again, if you want or need to reuse it, please don't grab it like this. Otherwise, it'll get scratched on the inside, where it's important for it to be smooth. So grab it on the outside with pliers, carefully, and pull it out with gentle movements. If the carburetor has been sitting for a long time, this can be quite difficult to do. But in that case, you can probably use a bigger pair of pliers, since you'll likely want to install a new valve anyway. Alright friends, let's keep going. This here is the jet holder for the main jet. Down here inside is the emulsion tube. I'll show you that in a moment. You'll need an 8mm open-end ring spanner for this. Hold on, let's use the open-end side here, that way we can reach it better. So you can completely loosen this here and theoretically you wouldn't even have to. Unscrew the main jet. Oh, it's already loose. If you do want to unscrew it, just hold it here and use a properly fitting screwdriver up top. But you can also clean it well like this. There you go. And then there's also the idle jet here. That's this one. This is a slightly longer version. Here too, make sure to use a properly fitting screwdriver. Definitely not one that's too small. Otherwise, you'll ruin the jet really quickly. There. That's what it looks like. And then there's another screw connection here. The carburetor is actually designed for a different installation position. That means the needle goes through in this direction here. So the mixing tube is installed here and secured with this small brass screw. You'll need a 6mm open-end wrench. Then you can unscrew it here and set it aside. Next, we move on to the top side of the carburetor. Again, make sure to hold the cover firmly here. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Yours are probably Phillips head. Here, they're Allen screws. Loosen the screws and unscrew them completely. As I said, make sure to hold the cover firmly while doing this. Once the screws are out, carefully lift the cover straight up. Again, there's a strong and pretty long spring underneath here. You can take it out. And here, please also take a look at the diaphragm. This little tab is seated correctly in here. And now I'm reaching in down here. Here, and I'm lifting up the slide. And with that, everything comes out. I've already shown you how to install the needle. It's exactly the same here with the 2 Phillips screws. So we'll just set it aside as it is. And now we still have the cover of the air cut valve here. On this carburetor, the cover is fastened with 3 screws, on the other one with 2. I'm pretty sure that this countersunk screw doesn't belong here. I think that someone here once didn't have the original screw on hand and only had a countersunk screw of this length, because this is what's called a blind hole for the screw. So, there's not unlimited space below, and that's probably why a different screw was used here. Alright, so take out these 3 screws again, sorry, and make sure to hold the cover firmly, because there's a pretty strong spring underneath. And when the screws are out, we lift the cover straight up. In case you're wondering, the air cut valve is there to prevent popping noises from the exhaust when you accelerate by closing off an air channel and thereby enriching the mixture. This is the cover. Here we have the small, strong spring and the diaphragm with the valve. I'll set this down here, and then we'll continue with the mixture screw. The idle mixture screw is also located here above the throttle shaft, right there in this mounting opening. Please unscrew it all the way out again. Let's hope we're lucky here too, and that the spring, the washer, and the O-ring are still sitting on it as well. So, that's sitting in there pretty deep. Now we've got it out, I'll carefully turn it over. No, we'll need the small needle nose pliers. No, it's completely loose. Well, let's check again. There we go, we've got it. Yes, we're in luck. Everything is still on there. Just like with the other carburetor, if these parts, let me show you again, don't come out with it, meaning you've only unscrewed the screw, then you need to make sure to get these out as well, using a small hook made from a bent paperclip wire. So this is the correct assembly order: the mixture screw, the spring, the washer, and the O-ring. Now, the last step here as well. Again, the M5 screw. The mixing tube is inside here. Sometimes it just falls out on its own. If it's a bit stuck, just screw in a screw. Then you can gently tap it out here or just push it through. We can take a look inside here now. You can see it there. So, there you have the mixing tube. That also needs to come out if you want to clean it properly with the ultrasonic bath, so you can rinse it thoroughly afterward. It turns along with it, so I'll show you again. Here you go. This is what it looks like on this carburetor. And then there's something else to mention. Namely, at the front here on the air intake side, you also have a jet that you can unscrew. The one on the right side there, you could unscrew that. But usually, it's big enough to be properly flushed in the ultrasonic bath. So it doesn't necessarily have to be removed. The same goes for this carburetor with the jet here at the air cut valve. That one doesn't necessarily have to be removed either. I'll leave that up to you. I can get it flushed like this. Of course, it also depends a bit on how experienced you are with the ultrasonic bath and with the preparation. Alright folks, we're done. I hope you enjoyed the video and that it helped you. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. I'd be happy to hear from you. Otherwise, I'd also really appreciate a like from you and a subscription. I wish you lots of fun and success with your project, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.